Hello everyone, it's Harrison Allen here, and today I've actually got something from my social group today. Today was our last little day before we go on Christmas, and one of the main activities we had today was a little Secret Santa, and this is something we were planning a while back, and after seeing like these type of books pop up on the Thomas Wiki, I want to say, that's when I was like, especially when they have like the early 2000s illustrations that were used on a lot of the home media and a lot of the merchandise, like, from, over 25 years ago and stuff, even when I was around, like, little and stuff, I was like, yeah, I got to get my hands on, this particular book. And, so yeah, I'm very happy what, like, one of my classmates, one of the participants, gave me and stuff. So yeah, very thankful. But now, this book necessarily wasn't actually made to coincide with the 80th anniversary celebrations and stuff. It's sort of like a necessity, I guess. But this book in particular was actually only exclusive to Australia, and other than Amazon, you can able to find this book in another one. I think it's an activity book, which is released by like the same brand and stuff. Some like in big W stores are like $4 or $5 and stuff. So yeah, nice little like promos of Thomas, James, Henry. Now what I do find actually cool about like these three engines being together is that during like the late 60s, early 70s, with a lot of like railway series like based merch, that was UK exclusive. Before the TV series introduced Percy to be the the green poster child, for the franchise. It was Thomas, James, and Henry. They were like, the three poster boys of like, the whole Railway series, or the Thomas brand at the time before. I think, yeah, it was Britt Allcroft who decided to to replace Henry with Percy and stuff, but that's okay. Also got the Gyro and the Fireman waving, as well as like, Harold on the side as well. And I do like the little texturing they have for the actual coloring book, like font as well. How you can still see like little bits of like white sticking outs from all the lettering and stuff, and it's a very accurate interpretation of like what actually happens with a lot of like the time when you're trying to like color in something, and you always get to see like all these little white bits still remaining after all the hard effort you put. So yeah, it's the front. 32 pages of coloring fun too. Here's the back. We've got another little promo of Thomas, James, the Fat Controller, which these particular ones were used quite a fair bit when it came to like merchandising around the early 2000s stuff. Now Molly is a pretty like there's a whole bunch of like deep cuts, but Glup Shittos has the Unlucky Tug word to say. A lot of like characters that don't really feature like in a lot of the new merchandise or like the show anymore, do make a return for these type of book and the other one. So yeah, it was published by Hardy Grant Children's Publishing. 2025 is the Hidden Entertainment logo, and Mattel, published in Australia and stuff like that. So here's the inside. There's also not a like the 2000s illustration promo artworks, but also like some from the early like to mid 2010s as well, with like the CGI Thomas render and stuff. I can remember that being used almost 15 years ago with some of the merchandise, like the Splish by Splosh DVD and that I did have as well. So yeah, here we got like some actual coloring pages. There's Thomas, James, and stuff. Thomas, the really useful engine, instead of Thomas the Tank Engine. Don't know why they use like those little taglines instead of like their proper ones for some of the characters anyway. Dennis the Lazy Engine, a real glup shit that one. No, he only appeared for one episode just for the sake of merchandising. Very appropriate character affiliation too with that little tag as well. Percy the Small Engine, again pretty accurate. A early 2010s Steam Team promo, excluding a few obvious characters. is Emily. Jeremy, which I think around the time was still getting a bit of merchandise of, like even the early 2010s when he stopped appearing after season 12, I think, yeah. Rocky, the Gentle Giant, yes, I could really agree with that little character description as well. Smurdoch, the Mighty Engine, yes, couldn't agree more. Gordon, Harold's, again, taglines like the Big Express Engine are still pretty accurate. Here's a promo of the whole Steam team, like the original, anyway, before, like, the Blobber era even happens. So Topham Hats, or the Fat Controller, like, this is now where Mattel has, primarily, like, use any terms of the Fat Controller replaced with, like, his real name of Sir Topham Hatt and stuff, not just, like, the US, but UK and Australia as well. So, yeah, there's Jack the Front Loader. He's, like, the only pack member in this little book. Mighty Mac, Strong and Silly. Strong, yes, and Silly, I'm not too sure. Neville the Kind Engine. Yes, that tagline I do believe is pretty true. Rosie the Fun Engine. Yes, I can agree with that too. And as well as like the Shiniest Engine, Spencer. Very, very, accurate as well. Fergus the Traction Engine. Yeah, it looks like Fergus. I mean, Trevor's been like, shoved out of the spotlight for this one. Cranky the Crane. And promo, which I want to say is from King of the Railway, but I'm not entirely sure. But I know it was from like, around that time frame between like season 17 and stuff. Lady the Magical Engine. Henry the Green Engine. Thomas the Tank Engine, just a regular one. Molly the Mighty. Mighty isn't the word I best describe Molly, since she really had like her one big role in a debut episode. That was about it, really. But I think there might be like some cop based on like some other merchandise from years ago, but I could be wrong. Troublesome Trucks. Now, some merchandise companies like Bachman, for example, are still using this little artwork for references for like all their Troublesome Trucks models, including Thomas, Percy, and James now too. And here we have Diesel 10. Both later Diesel 10 illustrations are based on their depictions from Magic Railroad. And we have Mavis. Now, something I want to bring up too is that Sony doesn't actually own the copyright infringement to the distribution rights for Thomas and the Magic Road anymore, according / confirmed by Brandon Carty and Joseph Marshall, who are currently like restoring like various cuts of the original director's cut of the movie, which is set for release next year. So well, yes, Diesel 10 and Lady are in Mattel's property. It's not entirely sure if, say, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, let alone Splatter and Dodge, have been sold to Mattel's copyright infringement, or if they've gone to like another, distribution brand or some degree. It's really hard to say, but I'm sure, Joseph and Cardi would know exactly, who owns what stuff, because I know that their, reconstruction of the director's cut is officially sanctioned, or like, they're producing it by their own companies and stuff. So yeah, that's the other book in a whole, and thank you guys so much for watching this little update video, and I'll see you guys again next week for when I do my little Christmas presents overview. Oh, have a good day, everyone, and I'll see you then. Bye.